So I am so excited to introduce the award-winning speaker and social justice leader, Libra Forde. Now, the first time I met her, we were on the North Clackamas School District Naming Committee for the 2 new schools in Happy Valley. When I first saw her, you knew right away that she's a powerhouse. It's not because of her height, though. It is because of the confidence that she carries herself with. In the meeting, she was stoic, poignant, and poised. Outside the meeting, she was open, warm, and all smiles. She impressed me with her knowledge of not only Black history, but the utter awareness of the struggles minority youth face. She fought hard for the 2 names, and because of her voice and her leadership, we recommended Kennedy for the elementary school and Judge Nelson for the high school. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Libra Forde.
Gotta get my speech open on my phone. Well, good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing? You look amazing. I love that you all have taken time out of your day to come here and listen to us. Not just because I think that as a Black person, we're just amazing, but I think that it's important that you share other people's stories because they're little stories in our heads that impact our lenses. Everything we see are basically just little stories in our head. So in your hands are, if some of you, if there's little people in the room, you absolutely won't know what these are because they don't even use these anymore. But what they are 3D glasses, right? And I'm going to tell you a little story, right? Because everything we see is just a little story. My first trip to the West Coast, I grew up in New York City. I had one aunt who was just adventurous, and she moved to California. And my family, being from Philadelphia, my mother's side of the family is from Philadelphia. My great-grandmother lived 3 doors away from my grandmother. My aunties lived 4 doors away from my great-grandmother in Philly, right? So I had this one auntie who was adventurous and moved to California. Then my mother was adventurous and she moved to New York City. But New York City is not as far as California. And so my auntie, who was an educator, and she later became a principal, she educated special education students. And I, at the time, had this lens or story that I was telling myself that I was not good enough. I was on the track to special education. And she told my mom, send her out to California for a summer. My mother, who was adventurous, said, cool, no problem. And she put me on a plane by myself at 6 years old. Flying was different then. So let me first say that. Flying was different then when you went to the cockpit, I got wings and all that stuff. Nobody does that anymore, right? I was sitting in, the stewardess gave me anything I wanted. Now it's like, you got to pay for everything. But they were super nice. So I get to California, and in one summer, my auntie took me from special education track to gifted and talented. One summer. And what she did was she changed the stories in my head. She gave me a different look. And one of the things that I just acutely remember is my first trip to the movies. I had never been to the movies. My mom was a single parent, so movies was just luxury, right? And my auntie was doing pretty good for herself, and she took me to the movies, and she took me in 1983. I was 8. She took me to see Jaws. And it was 3D. First time at the movies, And it's 3D. I'm with my auntie who was married, and I'd never seen a couple together. So this is all stories changing in my head, right? I'm sitting in between my auntie who I loved, who just made me smarter than I thought I was, and my uncle who's married to her, who loves her, and I'm just like, this is cool. And then they say, here's these glasses, put them on. And I'm just like, why would I do that? So the screen starts and Jaws starts, you know, the music, right? It's scary. I'm scared. It's unfamiliar. And they're like, you got to put these on, and I'm fighting it. No, I don't want to put these lenses on. And I find my uncle puts them together for me, and he says, put them on. So I want you guys to put those on your face. The first thing you think about when you put these are old school 3D glasses. If you got glasses on, first of all, you're already uncomfortable, right? And even if you don't have glasses on, you're uncomfortable because they're not made for anybody's nose. I don't care what your nose looks like. And if you didn't bend them hard enough to crease them, the ear part is just kind of doing its own thing. So basically, the lenses that you have on are very uncomfortable. And they don't allow you to see as clearly as you want to because it's also manipulating the colors, right? And everything just looks strange. Now, just imagine all this uncomfortableness, and you're watching Jaws. Right now, and this is old school 3D, so it's not that scary. Now 3D is like really scary. But I was scared. I was 8. You know, Jaws is coming out of everywhere, and every little thing is coming out of everywhere. And I'm confused because I'm uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar, and I can't really see. Not only can I not see, because I'm uncomfortable, I'm not really listening. Nor can I really focus. So I take the glasses off, so you can take them off. I know you want to take them off anyway, right? And when I take them off now, I watch this movie without watching through the lenses. So all the things that my auntie and uncle are seeing, I don't see. I can't see. The story in my head was fear. The story in my head was unfamiliar. The story in my head was, I don't want to see through those lenses. And I never put them on. And I say all that to say, how many times have you taken off lenses because you were uncomfortable? Or because they didn't fit well, you couldn't listen? Or because you didn't like the way they made you see, you decided to not look? There's 2 sides to that little story when you make that choice. There are children sitting in classrooms who are uncomfortable, who cannot listen because the lenses that they are forced to wear make them uncomfortable. And many of those students look like me. And when they're uncomfortable with those lenses that you shove in their hands and force them to put on, they shut off their ears, they shut off their minds, and they shut off any care. And then we wonder why they don't succeed. There are adults who know what lenses look like, who know how well they could watch that movie if they just put those on. But when it gets uncomfortable and scary, they take them off. And they only want to see what they want to see. And their little stories become the only stories that are their lenses. Today, you're here to check your stories, to hear the other side of what you might have experienced from your lenses, to hear how maybe your story can be tweaked just a little bit to see it a little bit different, to listen a little bit more, to care just a little bit more. Lenses are everything. Your little stories that you learned as a child, they're all true, but there's another side. And what I ask you to do is put on your 3D glasses when that movie comes on, and the movie in this life is called People of Color. And when it comes on, put it on with grace, listen carefully, be kind to yourself and to others, and know that if you can change that little story, you too can see the movie like you're supposed to through the 3D glasses. Thank you for listening.